All right. My notes. 3 adult audience members. Adult audience members, can you guys just turn and face the camera just to show that you guys are adults? All right. So, well before the United States was ever involved in the conflict in Vietnam, a little southeastern country known as Siam back then, or Indochina, had been a colony for the French since 1500s, and all the way up into World War II. While the French were busy fighting the German occupation in Europe, the little country of Vietnam was busy fighting for their independence alongside the United States and their allied forces against the Japanese. And there was this fight for independence that kind of gave them that notion and that want for freedom and their own independence, right? So once World War II ended, the French tried to go back and recolonize Vietnam. Unfortunately, they'd already gained their independence. They wanted that freedom. So with the French forces kind of growing back in the Vietnam area, they reached out to the United States and asked for some assistance, right? The United States did not oblige, and instead took the side of the French and wanted that recolonization. So the Vietnamese had no other options. They reached out to the Soviets and to the Chinese and their communist backings and received the funds and the supplies that they needed in order to defeat the French. Now the French were a much larger force. Unfortunately, they completely underestimated the Vietnamese people. They underestimated their will for independence and the fact that they're fighting in their own backyard, in their own territory, right? So the French, I mean, they even called them the Barefoot Army. That's how much they underestimated these guys. So it was, plus we have to think, once that the French soldiers in the French country, once the French began to lose the popularity of the war, they were already war weary from World War II. The French citizens, the French people, and the French government were sick of war. So they slowly started kind of backing out of that fight, that want for that recolonization. So you guys can go through. Yeah, you guys can go through. So according to the Encyclopedia Britannica website, it was up until the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, I don't know if you guys heard of that, that happened in 1954, that kind of was a turning point for the First Indochina War. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu was a French airfield in the mountainous regions of northern Vietnam. And what had happened is the French were completely surrounded by Vietnamese infantry forces on all sides, completely cut off from any kind of air supply, resupplies. They were under siege for almost 3 days, according to the history.com. For 3 days, under siege, ran out of supplies, and it was then that they were completely overwhelmed. Their defenses were overwhelmed, and it was the very first time in history that a large nation such as France was defeated by a much smaller, less equipped army of Vietnam. And it was from there on that after the French lost the war in Vietnam, that the United States kind of stepped in and started filling those shoes, those gaps. It was no longer a war of recolonization for France. It now became the Vietnamese people and their communist backings of the Soviets and the Chinese and the United States and their want for democracy and their fight for democracy. Thus kind of leads into the Truman Doctrine and domino theory and the spread of containism and the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. So, and prior to World War II, like I said, this had all been a part of the French colony. This is the Ho Chi Minh, who was one of the leaders, who was the leader who fought for the Vietnamese people. This is a letter requesting help from the United States. Like I said, the United States did not reply and respond to their need for help. Instead, they backed the French government with ammunition, weapons, and money. So this is Vietnam in 1954, leading up to the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. As you can see, the purple right here is the French strongholds, and the orange right here is the Vietnamese strongholds. The Vietnamese started to take a much bigger stronghold in their own country, and it's kind of when the tides of the war started to change. It was 1954. Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Like I said, the airfield completely surrounded. Now this is the hill areas over here, so they had the high point the Vietnamese infantry had the high point, and that's where they just had them completely surrounded and cut off. And due to bad weather, according to, like I said, the history.com on Battle of Dien Bien Phu, bad weather completely messed up their air resupply drops. And so the leaders who kind of formulated and put together the whole plan to overthrow and outroot the French from their country. On the left here we have Ho Chi Minh, and on the right was the leading general, General Giap, and they were kind of like the leaders of the entire Vietnamese army. All right, that concludes. You guys have any questions, concerns? No? All right, thanks.